right, everybody, thank you so much for coming today. I really appreciate that tremendously. Yes, you can clap, go ahead. Sure, absolutely, yes. The purpose of this conversation today, this forum, is to figure out the value and how we show that value of independent parties, of non-legacy parties. And how, yes, please clap, go ahead, yes. You see it all the time. You see one side saying, other guy bad, therefore vote for me. I know I killed somebody, but he killed 3 people, so vote for me instead. That is what we're looking at right now. We're not looking at what policies or ideas. The Democratic Party is supposed to be about civil liberties. It's not. The Republican Party is supposed to be about lower taxes, lower spending. It's not. Why not? They don't have to be. All they have to do is point at the other, say he or she is more evil than me, so pick me to protect you guys from the other bad guy. And they do it every single year, again and again and again. But independent parties are a way of holding other people accountable. Independent parties are able to get your voice out. Independent parties are able to be referees and all the things that we need. The question, though, is how are we able, how can we deal with the legacy parties, but not just that, the legacy media, and not even just that, the legacy voter. The voter who's been voting for the Democrats or Republicans for 20, 30, 40 years, whatever it may be. How do we make that happen? And I have up here with me an amazing panel. We have here to my left, Dr. Cornel West. You can check out what he's doing at cornelwest.com. Next to him, Mr. Jacob Hornberger. You can see what he's doing at jacobforliberty.com. And next to him, Dr. Charles Ballay. And you can see what he's doing at Ballay2024.com. And at the end, Mr. Lars Mapstead. And you can see what he's doing at Lars24.com. I want to ask the first question if I could. I'm going to ask it, if I could, starting with Dr. West. How do we handle the mainstream media that either ignores or disrespects us? And I know you have seen this personally more than once, disrespecting or ignoring. How do we get around that, or should we even?
Let me first say I'm just deeply blessed and honored to be here. The Libertarian Party has a rich legacy, a very, very rich tradition as well. And to be here with my dear brother Larry, who I always keep track of, 62 counties in 1 state. That's the love of the people. That's a deep service in New York, very much so. My dear brother Jacob as well, the Future of Freedom Foundation. I always try to keep track of those crucial voices that he has now for 34 years. And when it comes to my dear brother Lars and brother Charles, crucial, crucial voices. Why is that important? Because I think anytime we talk about media or we talk about a two-party system, it's good to start at a deeper moral and spiritual and philosophical level. That is to say, even Plato argued no democracy can survive precisely because the demos would be driven by unruly passion and ubiquitous ignorance. And if they did not learn how to raise their voices, that parrhesia that Socrates talked about, that fearless speech and free speech and unintimidated speech, to raise your voice and think for yourself. Let's call that Socratic energy.
Okay.
Now what happens in any social arrangement, let alone a democracy, when the Socratic energy is not just constrained and circumscribed, but the very capacity of our fellow citizens to want to muster the courage to raise their voices because they've given up. That means democracy is already spiritually and morally beginning to run out of gas. And that's before you get to policy, before you get to elites, before you get to our relation to other nations and so forth. And so one of our ends and aims, it seems to me, for those of us who still are deeply committed to public interest and common good, deeply committed to individual rights, deeply committed to liberties. And I just want to add a footnote here, that I was blessed to study with one of the finest philosophic minds to think about libertarianism. His name was Robert Nozick. He was my tutor in college for 3 years, and his classic Anarchy, State, and Utopia. I remember reading chapters of that before he published it in order to call into question my other teacher, John Rawls, whose office was right down the hall. Why is that important? It's very important because even though I disagreed with my dear brother Nozick, I learned how to listen. I learned how to wrestle with arguments and narratives and visions different than mine because I had deep libertarian sensibilities. I just didn't call myself a libertarian. Meaning what? Meaning that, oh, lo and behold, even when I read Hayek, I said, oh, that road to serfdom. Yes, he's absolutely right, but there's more than one road to serfdom.
Okay,
it's not
so
just
hold on,
public,
Dr. West,
but private as well. Why is that important? Because that's the spirit that we have to bring, brother, to our fellow citizens. With humility, not self-righteousness. They've got to see it in our example.
I love what you're saying. That didn't answer my question at all, but that's okay.
Well,
no worries. Okay. No, that's all good. So what I want to do then, since that was basically an opening statement, I am going to allow, if any of the other candidates would like to have an opening statement instead, they can do that. And so what? Lars Mapstead, would you like to have an opening? Oh, I'm sorry. Whoa, Charles, you opened up. Would you like to have one? Go ahead.
Ditto what Dr. West said.
Okay. There we go. Nicely done. Very nice. Okay. Jacob Hornberger, would you like to have an opening statement?
Sure.
Go ahead, please.
Okay. Well, I echo what he has said about Hayek and the road to serfdom and Nozick's Anarchy, State, and Utopia, but the real lodestar for me in libertarianism is Ludwig von Mises. I mean, Hayek was great in his road to serfdom, no question about it, and his essay, How the Worst Get on Top, his concept of the spontaneous order, his critique of socialism, excuse me, sir. But Ludwig von Mises, for me, was everything, because for me, principles are everything. And that's what guides me in this campaign. Libertarian principles are the greatest political and economic philosophy in the history of mankind. They hold the key to getting out of poverty, which is a concern that we would share.
Yes.
And libertarianism came up with that solution. Libertarianism holds the key to getting out of all the crises the Democrats and Republicans have foisted upon our land. This man here knows that the war on drugs is the most racist government program since segregation. Disproportionately higher jail sentences for blacks, and more stops and searches and seizures and asset forfeiture. You ask any black in this country if he knows who Michelle Alexander is, and I guarantee you 80–90% will know, but I'd say 5% of whites know. We hold the key in this party to the future of this country and the future of the world. We are lighting the darkness that statism has brought us, and we have to keep that lit. That light lit, that lighthouse lit, for the benefit of all mankind.
Thank you. Good. Mr. Mapstead, would you like an opening statement?
Absolutely.
Please.
So I just met Dr. West. I had seen him on a podcast before, and I was excited to meet him. And the first thing he said to me was, Lars, I really like that your system is rigged. I believe that the system is rigged. And I thought that is perfect, because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to reach all kinds of people, not just libertarians. I'm trying to reach Democrats. I'm trying to reach Republicans. I'm trying to reach independents with the idea that the system is rigged and that we have to unrig the system if we're ever going to have any change and any liberty in our lifetime. The system is completely rigged, and we're going to talk about the election system, ballot access tonight, and how those systems are rigged to keep us out and to disenfranchise Americans. And when people get disenfranchised, they get pissed off. And that's how we ended up with BLM and January 6th. Everybody in America is pissed off, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat or an independent, and we have to unrig the system before this boils over and there's chaos and there's hatred in our country. And that's one of the things I really like about Dr. West, is that I feel his passion for love and for affection for mankind, and that resonates with me. Thank you.
Here we go. Okay. So now, because I am diligent, I will try again. And I will ask the question one more time, if I may. And I'll go back to you again, Dr. West, if I could.
Yes.
Now, how do we handle being ignored or disrespected in the legacy media?
Well, one is, I have been blessed by the mainstream media embracing me at times. I've actually been on CNN
True.
probably more than I deserve. Now, MSNBC is a little different because of their connection to certain elements in the Democratic Party. And, you know, Brother Sean and the others in Fox News, they have me on all the time.
It's true.
So I have to be very honest and candid about that. To the degree to which I have an impact or not, it's hard to say, probably very little, but it's not the attempt to always feel as if you're going to instruct and inspire and delight, to use what, in fact, serious Socratic conversation is all about, but you have to bear witness. The major challenge at the deeper spiritual level at this point is distrust and despair. You can't have a democratic conversation. You can't have a dialogue in public if you have massive distrust and massive despair. That's not just the polarization of our society. That can end up being the gangsterization of our society. That's the triumph of Thrasymachus in Plato's Republic over Socrates. Might makes right. Raw power pushes out morality and spirituality. So again, there's deeper issues than just the political ones. And the degree to which I'm able to gain access to those, I bear witness. But the same is true with independent media. Of course, much of independent media is not that independent. We know that.
It's true. Very good.
Based on
I do appreciate that.
Still
Thank
based
you.
on how many clicks you get, and so you get the same conformity, you get the same unsocratic preoccupation with trying to be well-adjusted to a mainstream. Democracy thrives when people have the courage to raise their voices critically and freely.
Yes.
That's fundamental.
So I think in this case, what you're saying is, look, when you can get on, get on.
Yes, that's right.
Just when you can get on, and whatever it is, and then when you can't, go independent. Excellent. If I could then, Mr. Hornberger, please, same question.
I'm going to take a different perspective on this question. I think.
Surprised.
I'm sorry?
I'm surprised.
You're going to be more surprised when you hear my answer.
Okay, let's go. All right.
I think the media is right to ignore us. And I think they're right to show a lack of respect for us. Look, the campaigns we've been running for the last 20 years are boring. And they're boring to the electorate. And you know why they're boring? Because they become light copies of the Republican Party. Immigration controls. For 20 years, we've been running presidential campaigns that advocate immigration controls. Standard Republican message. In this race, everybody in this race favors the Republican position on immigration controls, with one exception, and that's me, open borders, which is the genuine libertarian principle. All right. Take school vouchers. School vouchers have become a mainstay of this party. The LNC sends out fundraising letters advocating vouchers and hiring speakers to advocate vouchers at LNC events. This is a classic socialist reform measure that is purportedly reforming a socialist institution called government schools, and we stand for anti-socialism. How can anybody have any respect for that position? We call ourselves the party of principle. This position, vouchers, violates the libertarian non-aggression principle, which is our core principle. It violates the pledge that every one of us take. How can anybody have respect for that kind of position? And the voters certainly don't. We're at 1% in the polls still. 2 Wall Street Journal polls show us at 1%. You know, when I ran for U.S. Senate, when I ran 3 years ago, I walked into a Hispanic newspaper in Raleigh, North Carolina, and they said, "What do you stand for?" And I said, "Open borders, abolish all restrictions on the free movements of people." They said, "Sir, we want to do a full-scale interview with you," because they found that to be an interesting position, and it is also the position of principle for the party of principle.
Here we go. All right. All right. All right. Dr. Ballay, please, same question.
I think I'd be a bit pragmatic about this. The truth is that in this particular party since 1971, this party unfortunately has gains about 1% of the vote, a maximum 3.2% of the vote since in 2016 with Gary Johnson, right? If you look at the Republican and the Democratic parties, for instance, the minimum that they received is in 1992 with George Bush at 37% of the vote. Where's the problem? I mean, so where I trained, where I've been instructed, is you always evaluate yourself. You evaluate yourself prior to the race, you evaluate yourself during the race, you evaluate yourself after the race, and then you give yourself a critical critique. What went wrong? Is it a messaging issue? I mean, are there too many messages from this party? Is there a lack of unity in this party? I think this party needs to come together and get behind someone, whoever all of the delegates decide upon, and everybody needs to unify. I mean, look, and also, what actually is the relevance of the mainstream media in this day and age, right? You just saw, I mean, just down the street, the LA Times, look at all the layoffs. You have AI coming about. Where are we going to get our news from in 5 years? Is it going to be people? Is it going to be an instrument? Who owns this instrument? These are the things we need to be focusing on.
Excellent, thank you. Excellent. Mr. Mapstead.
Thank you so much. We have to take every opportunity to spread the message of liberty, whatever it is. So if I'm approached by media, I'm taking it. I've been on podcasts large and small. I've been on radio stations all across the country. And my message is resonating. In fact, I went to Mississippi this summer with Spike Cohen. He was investigating a murder of a young man in Mississippi. There was a racial murder. And I went down there to support the family and to support finding justice for this young man. And while we were there, we did a radio interview with a very Republican radio personality. And as he was going, he was talking about unrig the system, and he loved all my economy stuff, but he didn't like any of the issues that were not Republican. But he said, so this thing about the unrig the system, he's like, I could see how Democrats would really want to unrig the system. And then he started thinking about it, and you could see the wheels turning in his head, and he says, you know, Republicans also want to unrig the system. And I said, yes, everybody in America is fed up and they're ready to unrig the system. So we have to take every opportunity that we get to get our message out, to spread the message of liberty. And I've been doing that with guerrilla tactics. I'm the only candidate that has been in 9 national polls in major media. Wall Street Journal polls, Fox News has put me on. So these are things that I'm doing. So I spent over $100 million in advertising running my company, Friend Finder Networks. I know how to spend advertising effectively and efficiently to deliver our message. And that's how I got in these polls, and that's how I'm going to get in front of major media as we continue to go on and as I perform my electoral vote project. People are going to start taking notice, the media is going to start taking notice, and we're going to put fear into the duopoly that we're going to break the system. Thank you.
Wow. So I didn't expect to hear basically they disrespect us, ignore us, whatever, is basically what I heard. If they hang out with us, good. If they don't, they don't. Okay, I'm in. Let me move to our next question if I could. Mr. Hornberger, how do we handle the argument, which I know you get, and you've been very forward about, the idea of a wasted vote, or we're going to be a spoiler, so I like you, Jacob, you're great, but you know, you can't win. I like you, Jacob, but you know, it's a wasted vote. How do we deal with that?
I agree with it. It is a wasted vote. I mean, if you take, for example, the immigration position, which is really one of the 2 issues that have come to define this campaign, when you run a candidate that favors this Republican position of immigration controls, the idea is, oh boy, that's going to generate a lot of votes. Actually, it generates 0 votes. 0. Because every right-wing proponent of immigration controls is going to vote for Donald Trump. They're not going to waste their vote. They'd be dumb to waste their vote on a Libertarian presidential candidate that favors the same position. They'd be dumb. Or if you favor Social Security extension, which this party has done for 20 years now, or Medicare extension for the next 25 years or so, which all of my opponents favor. They call it an off-ramp. Ever since the South Carolina debate, they've said we got to extend these socialist programs for 20 years. Who's going to waste their vote on an LP candidate calling for socialism? They vote for Biden. And what I'm suggesting is that if you want to get rid of the wasted vote syndrome, you've got to get your own group of passionate voters, your own Donald Trump voters types that are passionate about our message. And I'm saying that only a message of principle can generate that. Nothing else. We have to find our own passionate people that love our principles, open borders, and they're out there. 20 years ago, I ran for U.S. Senate in Virginia against one of the most popular governors in the history of the state, John Warner. Democrats didn't run anybody, but they were not going to vote for me. Anyway, I'm calling for the repeal of Social Security, Medicare, public schooling. I got 7% of the statewide vote. because there is a constituency out there that loves our principles. But if we don't run our principles and we run with immigration controls or saving Social Security or saving Medicare and so forth, then those passionate voters never come because the others are just wasting their vote anyway.
Wow. So you're basically saying, I don't care about the wasted vote. I don't care about a spoiler vote. I'm going to get my people, and they're going to vote for me, and they're not going to care. Did I kind of get that right or no?
Almost.
Okay.
It's not me. Okay.
Okay.
It's what I'm enunciating. That's the attractiveness.
Got it. Okay.
Of what's going on here. It's our principles that will generate that enthusiastic group of voters,
Okay.
not me.
Okay, thank you. Dr. West, if I could ask you the same question. How do we handle that waste? I'm sure you get it, right? Oh, Dr. West, I love what you say, but you know what? You can't win. You're a spoiler. If a vote for you is a vote for Trump, a vote for you is a vote for Biden, whatever, right? I'm sure you get that.
Well, I mean, no politician owns any fellow citizen's vote. They have to make a case for it. Where's the argument? Where's the vision? I agree with Brother Jacob in terms of principle. You see, we had to proceed based on integrity, honesty, decency, courage, generosity, what our vision is, and be true to that. Say what we mean and mean what we say. And then provide a critique of the narrow lens through which so many of our fellow citizens view it, which is there is no alternative to the two-party system. So therefore, you're a spoiler. If you believe that democracy is about lifting voices, and those voices are putting forward visions and arguments, then the very notion of a spoiler doesn't make any sense at all. Because things are in fluctuation. Things are changing. And they're changing precisely because people are courageous enough to raise their voices, to organize, provide alternative visions of the world, to authorize different kinds of futures, and to say it in such a way, and here we can go to Aristotle, with logos, argument, with ethos, character in the speaker, and with pathos, something you're willing to sacrifice for, something you're willing to take hits for. And that's one of the ways in which you reshape the argument and you move from politicians who've been thermometers who reflect the climate of opinion to politicians, statespersons who become thermostats, who shape the opinion of fellow citizens. We don't have enough statespersons and thermostats because our politics is so thoroughly, well, Shakespearean, rotten. Something's rotten in Denmark. Something is profoundly rotten in Washington.
Thank you, thank you. If I could go to Dr. Ballay, the same issue. I mean, again, you are in a state that is very one-sided. People have to tell you, I can't vote for you because to vote for the other guy. You got to hear that, right?
Yeah, but I mean, think about it. There is no such thing as a wasted vote. It's an impossibility, right? I mean, the problem that we should be looking at is voter apathy. I mean, how is it that on a presidential election you get 50 to 60%, midterms 40%, non-midterms you have 20%? Like, what's wrong with this country? I mean, sure, the Electoral College was created, right? But 1787? But why do we still use it if people aren't going to actually agree with it? Why, I mean, what's wrong with people today when they say, I didn't go vote? Why is it? Is it because third parties don't count? I don't think so. And furthermore, if you go vote, say, hey, look, it's a wasted vote, that's a mandate for somebody else. So if everybody goes and votes for Biden this fall, that means we all agree with his policies? I don't think so, right? I mean, think about it. It just doesn't make any sense. I think a wasted vote is a way to keep people down. I think there's no place for it in society. I think third parties have a place in society.
But let me give you a little pushback if I could. I'm asking, how do we handle it? Right? I get it. I agree with everything you just said. But how do you handle it?
Because I think there's the only way that we're going to do this is increase choice.
Okay.
I mean, so I agree. I mean,
okay.
Thank goodness, Dr. West is here. Thank good we had Kennedy yesterday. I mean, the more voices that we can get for a third party, God bless. I mean, we may not agree with his policies in total, but we should agree that we all need to get together to make voices heard.
Got it. Okay, yes, good. Mr. Mapstead, same question.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this election is too important to vote for a Democrat or a Republican.
Yes.
We have the illusion of choice in America. The choices that we're going to be foisted upon is going to be Donald Trump and Joe Biden once again. And I have become so disillusioned and so jaded in this system. All of my life, I had to vote for Clinton or Bush. And I'm so jaded right now that I believe it's going to be Jared Kushner versus Hunter Biden in 2028. The reason that we have a problem, our votes don't count, is because of winner-take-all laws, because of ballot access laws, because of all the barriers that are put into place by the duopoly to keep any other voice out. And part of my whole campaign is that I want to offer America more voices. I think anybody from gas station attendant to millionaire should be able to run for president and have their voice heard. And our system is completely rigged right now to only offer you choices from the duopoly. So we need to be embracing this Voters' Bill of Rights, which is my signature policy piece, and you can find it out on my table. And this Voters' Bill of Rights is built specifically to unrig our election systems. It is nonpartisan. It can be picked up by both Republicans, Democrats, independents, whatever you want. But this fixes our ballot access laws, makes our elections secure, introduces transparency to the system, and allows for you to audit the system and audit the voting machines, and then returns the voting rights to felons who have served their time.
There we go. Okay. So your answer is change the system.
Unrig the system.
Okay, unrig the system. Okay, that's your answer. Well, perfect segue, because the next question to you, Dr. Ballay, is literally, how are we going to deal with this horrible ballot access system that Lars was just talking about? How do we deal with that?
Quite simple. Win. We need to win.
Oh, I like that.
Right? I mean, think about it. We were on the elevator there discussing this, right?
No, clap for winning. Yes, winning is good. Yes, winning is good.
We were on the elevator, and you said the problem with this party, or one of the problems, please correct me if I'm wrong, is that there's no elders in this party anymore. People see lose. They burn out. And so,
just for clarity, what I said was too many people run and then never come back again.
Yeah, I mean,
that's what I said. Yes, you're correct.
So where are our elders that can say, listen, these are my circumstances that have gone on for years and years? And, I mean, well, there's one of them, but you're not an elder.
There we go.
The point is that when you lose persons, you lose participation, you lose knowledge, you lose wisdom, and you also lose money. I mean, so how can this party survive if you're going to think you're going to beat $100 million with $1 million? Good luck. And I mean, it's just not going to work. They also think this needs to be organization. I mean, there is a hodgepodge of libertarian members from around the country. This is the third largest party in the country, but it's not as well organized as many, right? Or Democratic and Republican. Consequently, the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is talking about in some cases. If you're going to beat these guys, you need to start earlier in this. We need to find a candidate. Say, listen, this is what needs to happen by X date, by X date, by X date, and that way you can go about and win. And when you continue to win, you draw people into your party. People begin to listen to you. Media begin to cover you. And then things begin to take circumstance.
I like that. Look at that. What was it? Was it MacArthur who said there's no substitute for victory? Or was that Patton? One of those generals said that. Here we go. I like it. Someone can Google that for me later. I'd appreciate it. So let me move on. If I could, Mr. Hornberger, same question. How do we deal with this horrible ballot access problem that we have across this country?
Well, I was fascinated by Bobby Kennedy Jr.'s answer to that. He says, I don't have any problems at all.
I remember that.
I can collect 5,000 signatures in one day.
Yep.
Well, that indicates to me he's got a passionate following that are willing to go that, or they're donate money to get the paid petitioners. Look at this party. We can't even get on the ballot in New York because there is no passionate following out there. When I hear this, we got to win, we got to keep our feet on the ground. We're at 1% in the polls. When Lars talks about all these polls, what he doesn't tell you is that they're at 1% or 0%. The newest poll is 0%. You're not going to win at 0%. Okay? You're not going to get anywhere at 1%. What I contend in this race, since the very beginning I entered it, there is only one way to achieve a breakout of 10 to 15%. And that's restore the principles of this party. Because the voters do not like this message. I keep hearing this, people are so dissatisfied with Trump and Biden. This is a great opportunity for us. They'll default to us. They won't default to us. They're already telling us that. And these Wall Street Journal polls of 1% that just came out, and the 0% poll, those 99% voters are saying, we don't care how dissatisfied with Biden and Trump, we're not voting for you. That's reality. I mean, I feel like I'm a therapist saying, look, we got to keep our feet on the ground. The only way to achieve a major breakout, and I contend that breakout is possible, is what I did in Virginia 20 years ago when I ran for U.S. Senate. And that is find our own passionate voters. Anybody here that knows somebody in North Carolina, talk to them about what we did when we went to the black neighborhoods of Wilmington, the poorest black neighborhoods. Who in this party targets the black neighborhoods? You would not believe the response we got. Mr. Hornberger, thank you for being here. Thank you for arguing against the war on drugs. We're going to get our friends to come and vote for you. That's the response you get if you find your own passionate following as compared to targeting the Republicans, which is what we've been doing for the last 20 years, targeting Republicans for votes.
Thank you. I like that. I want to give you just 10 seconds if you want to respond. He did mention you.
Well,
Mr.
I would just
Mapstead.
say that where are your polls, Mr. Hornberger? If your message is so awesome, why aren't you polling in any polls? I've been in 9 polls. I haven't seen anything from you. So if your message is awesome and is going to get 15%, why aren't you polling at 15% right now?
Because the American people understand, Lars, that the probability is that we're going to run the same candidate, reform-oriented, that we've been running for the last 20 years, including your sales tax of 18 to 23% that you want to saddle on the poor people of this country. Now, you do that, and you replace the income tax with the sales tax like he wants to support the welfare warfare state, which he wants to continue with Social Security and Medicare, of $80 trillion, I will guarantee you, you can kiss away every single vote of every single poor person in this world, in this country, and you're not going to get one multimillionaire who's going to love your proposal because they're all going to vote for Trump and Biden.
Wow, do I get to respond to that?
Okay, yes, and that's it. After that, no more. More of a panel. Go ahead, yes.
Absolutely. So our North Star is the same. I want to abolish all taxes and get to no taxation. I want to abolish and end all of our corporate welfare, our social welfare. I want to get to the same place as Jacob does, but I know that we can't just wave a magic wand and get there. We have to have an actual plan to get there. And if you think that throwing and getting rid of Social Security tomorrow won't lose you every senior citizen's vote in America, then you're completely stoned on something.
All right, let's move on if we could, please. Dr. West, you going to follow that? How do we deal with ballot
this
access?
Socratic spirit.
Yes.
This is a beautiful thing.
There we go.
This is what debate and dialogue is all about. But I'll say this, though. I think my dear brother RFK Jr. is not telling the full truth.
Okay.
There's no reason why he would have lawyers to go to court to push the state of Utah to move from January to March and now getting them to move to June, without acknowledging how difficult the obstacles are that the two-party system imposes to make it difficult for third parties and independent candidates. That's very real. That's part of the rigged quality. So that when I hear Brother Kennedy saying, well, I have no problem, I say, well, all right. We were born at night, but not last night. No. Let's tell the people the truth.
There we go. All right. So let me then move on to next question.
Oh, I didn't get to answer that question.
Oh, sorry. Yes, you were too busy fighting. I'm sorry. Yes, go ahead and answer the question. Sorry. You are correct, Mr. Mapstead. I apologize. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. So I think ballot access is the #1 issue for the Libertarian Party. We can't win elections if we can't get on the ballot. That is the #1 issue. And so I talked about how I want to win an electoral vote on election night, and 2 states are prime candidates for that, Maine and Nebraska. So I went to Maine and I talked to the Maine chair and I said, hey, I want to make sure that I'm on the ballot here in Maine so that we can win this electoral vote on election night. And he said, oh, that's great, but we don't have ballot access. And then he went on to tell me how all the libertarians had been deleted from the voters' rolls and that they had to do all these legal wranglings in order to get back on the ballot. And so it turns out that they needed 5,000 registered Libertarian voters in order to be a major party status in Maine. And they were like 3,000 votes short, and they only had 60 days left to get it. And I realized that they were not going to get it. And I put together a team of people, including Richard Winger and Bill Redpath and a bunch of other people. I put in $25,000 of my own money. I went out on the ground and tried to recruit people in order to be registered voters, and I realized that wasn't going to happen. That's not my skill set. So we had to hire experts to do it, and we literally barely creeped it over the line, and we got major party status for Maine ballot access. And that's a big deal. And I would just like to add that the chair of Maine, who fought to get the ballot access lowered, wants to do that in all states. And after this is done, I want to start a nonprofit that is just about punishing ballot access laws across this country, reducing ballot access laws for all candidates, for all parties, regardless of party and affiliation.
There we go. All right. Let me go to my next question if I can. And since you just went, I'm going to move this over to Dr. Ballay. If you could answer this question. It's just a personal question.
Sure.
How do you handle when you start to run for office and people around you either turn on you, say lies about you, don't defend you when people lie about you, don't want to talk to you? How do you handle that personally?
It hasn't happened yet. Most people are proud.
It's coming soon. Okay, coming soon.
And if they do, they haven't told me to my face.
Okay.
So bottom line is they all understand that I am a person of principle. And I really could give a you-know-what about what people think of me.
Okay.
I've had a few medical issues in my life, et cetera, and I truly don't care. I mean, I care, but I don't care. The fact that someone would look at me and have a different idea based upon my political philosophies, I would hope I wouldn't think that much less of them, but I probably would. I mean, we're all free in this country. We deserve to do what we want. We should be able to think what we want. We should be able to act how we want. That's why I'm part of this party. But in all honesty, most people that have found out, they may think I'm a little crazy, given the fact that we've only scored 3.2%.
Right.
But they all support me.
Okay, I got it, good. I love it. All right. Mr. Hornberger, how do you deal with it when people say things like, oh, you're not good, I don't like you anymore, or you're wrong, or you're bad, or whatever? How do you handle that when it's people who are supposed to be your friends, or supposed to be your allies, or even family?
Well, I've had experiences with all of them.
There we go. Yes.
I've gotten to the point where I don't argue with people like that. You know, it's suggested, oh, we're going to lose the senior vote. That's ludicrous. No senior's going to vote for a Libertarian Party presidential candidate. Get over it. I don't care whether you have a 25-year plan for continuing the socialist program, which all of my opponents favor.
But hold on. I want to go back down. It's personal.
I'm getting there.
Personal.
I'm getting there.
Okay.
Okay. That you have to stand for your principles regardless.
Okay.
And with those principles, you find the people that love these principles. If you compromise your principles, you water them down trying to please people in order to get their vote, then you end up with a party that is running a Republican-light campaign that garners 1% of the vote. There's a reason, you know, the common assumption is that we're getting these 1% votes in these polls, which already have established what we're going to do in 2024, because they're assuming that we're going to run the same kind of campaign.
Trying to get you back to personal. Trying.
You stand for principle, Larry.
Good, that's a good answer. I like that answer.
It is a good answer.
Yes.
Because all too long in this party, we've advocated complex, as you know, reform plans for like public schooling, where you get these complex plans about how to run these public schools. You've got candidates in this office saying, we're going to use the presidential race to get libertarians to take over public school boards. That's what we're about, to show Americans that we're better off running socialism. We got to stand for our principles. It's a self-esteem problem.
Self-esteem? Ooh, I like that. A self-esteem problem. I've heard that before.
We are who we are. We are libertarians. Our principles are not liabilities. They're not albatrosses, as has been ingrained in us for 20 years. These are our greatest assets. These are our weapons that we carry into battle. We need to fight as libertarians, and that means rejecting reform, rejecting all these sales taxes and so forth, rejecting Social Security saving, and stand for liberty. And that's how we find our passionate voters.
Okay. So, Dr. West, how do you handle that? I mean this, you can do a little what Jacob did, but also please do personal too, if you would.
Yeah, see, I would argue that Brother Jacob's claim is a necessary but not a sufficient condition.
Okay.
The Socratic legacy of Athens teaches us that if you solely stand on principle, the hemlock is waiting for you.
Ooh.
And the prophetic legacy of Jerusalem teaches you if you stand solely on principle, the cross is waiting for you. In the middle, there's Cicero. In the middle, there's practical wisdom and prudence that teaches you jazz-like improvisational, flexible ways of engaging the world. So you still adhere with principle, but you can still speak to people where they are, given the changing circumstances and conditions under which they live. And we can't be in politics and solely with Socrates and Jesus. You've got to keep your Socratic dimension, keep your deep commitment to love of the least of these and going into the temple and running out money changers, not because you hate the rich, but because you are committed to treating each and every person in a dignified way, no matter what color, gender, sexual orientation, national identity, the Imago Dei that sits at the very center of a great tradition. Hebrew scripture, Bible, and Quran. So that in that sense, I'm with my brother in part, but it's got to be more than just standing on principle, my brother. Do you accept that?
No.
I'm surprised. What?
That's good. That's good.
I'm surprised. You surprised me again, Jacob. Oh my God. This is surprise day. Oh my God. Twice in a row you surprised me. Nice. Go ahead, Jacob, please.
Let's put ourselves in 1855 Alabama.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there saying, we need to abolish slavery, while others are saying, oh, Jacob, you're going against the tide. You can't convince anybody of this. It's in the Constitution. We need to reform slavery, Jacob. Fewer lashings, better work conditions. We need to gradually reduce slavery over the next 25 years. And I'm sitting there saying, abolish slavery now. I don't care what anybody else believes.
Oh, I'm with you. I'm with you.
Okay.
But let's look concretely. Frederick Douglass has a choice between a liberal slaveholder and a conservative slaveholder. He's an abolitionist, like you say. He founds a third party called the Liberty Party. That Liberty Party also encounters a figure with 1 year of formal education with Shakespeare in one pocket and the Bible in the other, named Abe Lincoln. And he says the only way you're going to break the back of this barbaric system is not just standing on principle. You're going to have to come up and putting people in motion to be able to result with the abolition of slavery. That's the prudence. That's the practical wisdom. And you can't talk about Lincoln without talking about Douglass. You can't talk about Harriet Tubman without talking about Lincoln.
All right. Okay. Okay. All right. So I am so sorry, Mr. Mapstead, you have to follow that. I'm so sorry. You have to follow that. But it is now your turn to follow that.
Well, I'm gonna come at it a little bit different angle. So I have two very good friends that are hardcore Republicans, and I have two very good friends that are hardcore liberal Democrats. And before I was running and I used to have time, I used to go to lunch with these people. Now they haven't seen me for like 5 or 6 months. But the thing is I would have political conversations because these are my very close friends. And I was a little bit afraid to have political conversations with my very close friends because they might start hating on me and telling me I'm a jerk and that sort of thing. And what I found is because I have such a good relationship with these gentlemen, that I can have a regular conversation with them. I can listen to them where they're at. I can meet them where they're at, and we can find mutual agreement where they're at. And that's what we have to do in the Libertarian Party. We can't just be shouting at people and telling them they're wrong. We have to meet them where they're at. One of the questions that I love asking people is, do you think that the government spends the money that it takes from you wisely and efficiently? I never get anybody that says yes, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, and that's a place to start a conversation. That's a place where I can start bringing liberty into the conversation.
Nice.
Thank you.
Excellent. All right, let me go to, this is a question that I was given after yesterday's conversation, so I want to bring it up now if I could. And I'll start as if I could with Dr. West. What does a peace foreign policy look like? When it comes to foreign policy, what does a peace foreign policy look like?
It means that we have to acknowledge that it's always difficult to preserve precious individual liberties in an empire that's preoccupied with dominating the whole world. So that the militarism abroad,
Yes.
with all the resources flowing in that direction, make it very difficult to come back home and act as if you want militarize the border. We see that in John Washington's wonderful book that you were alluding to on dealing with borders. Militarizing various sites and schools. I spent a whole lot of time in poor schools. There's more police in the schools than there are nurses. You see, that's pretty spiritually decadent in terms of our precious children. I don't care what color they are. So part of it's a matter of being honest and saying, look, there's no such thing as a desirable and civilized society that is not fundamentally committed to the protection of liberties and rights. That's the precondition of any kind of social arrangements that's worthy of approval. Now, there's a whole lot of different varieties that can come after, but those are the non-negotiable preconditions. That's one reason why the libertarian tradition is so very important. Even though I may not end there, I always acknowledge that's the brook of fire through which one must go through with the protection of those rights and liberties for any kind of civilized society. And therefore, for me, to talk about peace is to always talk about both liberty, but also fairness and justice. And how we wrestle with that is we'll never reach a full consensus on it. Brother Jacob and I can have a wonderful argument, mediated with cognac and a whole lot of other things and having a good time and learning from each other, but it doesn't mean that we're going to reach a unanimity on it. But the question is, can we somehow be committed enough to say that, lo and behold, there's certain non-negotiable prerequisites like liberties and rights and like fairness and justice.
Well,
and you can't do that with an empire obsessed with profit abroad, obsessed with oligarchs and plutocrats tied to that policy, and with the Pentagon in love with arm manufacturers and arm manufacturers in love with the Pentagon.
So, please, yes, please. If I understood this correctly, you were even talking about to have a peace foreign policy, you also have to have a peace domestic policy. Did I get that right?
Absolutely.
Excellent. There we go.
Hand in hand.
There we go. Excellent. So, Mr. Hornberger, please, same question. What would a peace foreign policy look like?
Well, when I announced my candidacy, and you can see it at jacobforliberty.com, I gave two reasons I was running. One, I want to be free, and the second was I want to bring an end to the federal killing machine. Martin Luther King said this is the greatest purveyor of violence in the world, this government, and he was right. And I saw it firsthand. I went to Virginia Military Institute. I was an infantry officer. I saw what the Vietnam War was doing. 58,000 of my generation killed for nothing, including many blacks who were conscripted to serve, to fight for freedom while there was segregation back here at home. That was the free society they were being forced to die for. They destroyed Muhammad Ali's life, at least the prime of his career, because he was objecting to this crooked and corrupt war. What I'm saying is that to end this thing, you not only have to bring all the troops home. He's absolutely right about the empire and domination. You've got to bring all the troops home, discharge them. They're not necessary. Abandon all foreign military bases, but you got to do more. You've got to dismantle the national security establishment. That is the root of this problem. That is the Pentagon, the CIA, and the NSA. Worst mistake we ever made in this country was converting the federal government from a limited government republic that was limited to the powers in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights to a totalitarian form of governmental structure that assassinates people, including John Kennedy, as Bobby Kennedy Jr. has had the courage to point out. Along with Martin Luther King and Patrice Lumumba and General Rene Schneider and any others. That's what we have to do. And I'm not the only one who has said this. Frank Church, who is head of the Church Committee, said the same thing. that you can get out of Vietnam, it won't make any difference. They'll have a whole slew of other foreign wars to start with. You've got to get rid of the national security state and the domestic empire of bases, of military bases. Now we're talking about a genuinely free society.
There we go. Thank you. Dr. Ballay, please, same question. What does a peace foreign policy look like?
It's hard to follow these two because they've said so eloquently. But that's my beliefs are the same. I mean, I'm a physician. I believe in life. Life is sacred. We don't realize how short time we have here on Earth before it's taken away. I mean, how can you advocate for continuing this war machine post-World War II? I mean, what right do we have? And furthermore, if you're going to try to justify this by some economics, every country ever with colonialism has failed. I mean, look at England, and it's fallen to pieces. I mean, compared to where it once was. France, Spain, Portugal, you name it. I mean, the continued spend at $34 trillion in debt now, much of which is military spending, so that we can police the world makes absolutely no sense. I mean, we need to bring people home. We need to close a lot of bases. We need to keep our country safe, but there's no reason that we need to be the policeman of the world.
Okay, good, all right. Mr. Mapstead, same question.
Thank you. We have to stop funding wars and start funding peace. Bottom line. How many of our freedoms have we given up because of moral righteousness on one side of the aisle or the other? They use moral righteousness for war all the time. They tell you that we're going to go in and we're going to deliver democracy to these other countries. We do not deliver democracy to these other countries. What we deliver is death. I am tired of my tax dollars being taken from me and used to drop bombs on kids in faraway lands. I'm completely over it. We have to end our military state. We have to end our coercion, pushing our agenda on other countries. We do not like it when the left and the right tell us how to live our lives. Imagine if you're in another country and America's military comes rolling in and tells you how you have to live your life at the end of a gun, a real gun, not just a political push gun. This we have to stop. This is very important, and we can do this by lifting people up, by growing the GDP of America. We can lift up all other countries by allowing for free trade, by getting rid of all the barriers to free trade. Let the free markets lift up the world, and we can stop a lot of these wars. We just have to end the coercion, because that is what is dividing not only America, but the world. We cannot even police Detroit or San Francisco. How the hell are we going to police the rest of the world?
Okay. I do want to do one more question before we go to closing statements, and it's about what we're doing now. I'll start with Dr. Ballay, if I could. We have often been pushed out, ignored when it comes to debates. Been very common. There's a commission on presidential debates right now, which the Republican Party now has abandoned. Right? They have abandoned it now, so who knows what's going to happen. We have Trump not even showing up to debates. We have Democrats not even doing debates. So what do you feel about supporting either opening up presidential debates, or what do you think about the Commission on Presidential Debates? Dr. Ballay, could you please start?
I'd have to commend Fair and Equal. I mean, we need more. I mean, we need more ability. I mean, and there's no reason in this day and age, whether you use Facebook, Twitter, I mean, just name the alphabet soup. There's a means to get the message out. I mean, we're not living back where we have to singularly look at one particular television station for this. And it doesn't require a tremendous amount of effort. It doesn't require a tremendous amount of cost. I mean, this microphone probably costs $10 on Amazon, right?
You just insulted our AV team, but fine.
But the point is that there needs to be more input from people, and it does not need to be a costly endeavor. Now, getting people to watch, getting people to participate is a whole nother issue. But I don't see it as being that difficult. The problem is getting some degree of unity. And I think you're going to see that now with third parties. I mean, look at it this year. Look at the number of persons outside of the mainstream duopoly that actually want to participate. And in what, 120,000 people have signed up for something that's coming up later this week? Yeah. I mean, that's pretty good. Sure. I mean, we need much greater, but I think we're making headway. That's a hell of a lot more than you'd have 20 years ago.
Okay, excellent, thank you. Mr. Hornberger, what about that? Do you support opening them up? What do you think about the commission?
I think it's much more important that this party engage in some serious soul searching rather than focusing on getting in the debates.
Okay.
You see, the whole notion has been, oh, we're at 1% because we didn't get into the debates. I challenge that. I say that even if you get into the debates, you're still going to be at 1%. Because it's this message of reform and Republican light that voters don't like. We've been running this message for 20 years, but we don't listen to the voters. They give us the 1%, or give us in these 28 polls that we've heard about, 1% or 0%, and we say, oh, it's because we're not in the debates. Pure nonsense. We have a candidate in this race that buttresses my point. He ran for U.S. Senate. He got $30–40 million of free advertising. He got into debate with a United States senator, widely televised all across the state and all across the country. He ended up with 2% of the vote. He is one of the most eloquent proponents of reform in this party. It's the message we need to concentrate on. I'm saying that if we restore our principles, our founding principles, open borders, abolish Social Security and Medicare and socialism immediately, restore faith and freedom and voluntary charity instead of the coercive apparatus of the state, dismantle the national security state, separate healthcare in the state, money in the state, education in the state, economy in the state. Then we get into the debates with that message. Now we're talking about something different. Because what good's it do to get in the debate if you're on the same page as Donald Trump? You know, Trump says, oh, well, we need to close the borders. We need to seal the borders. We need to finish the Berlin Wall. We need to bring more death and suffering to the border. And the Libertarian candidate says, here, we're on the same page. We Libertarians and those Republicans. Where is that going to get us in terms of votes? Everybody that supports this dysfunctional, malevolent system's going to go with Trump, not the Libertarian Party candidate. We have to stand for our principles and distinguish ourselves and then get into those debates.
Okay, thank you. Dr. West, should we be opening up these presidential debates? What do you think about the commission? Or should we just not worry about it at all?
No, we've got to fight on all fronts. We've got to bring all the different forms of weaponry, intellectual, moral, spiritual, political, organizational. But we can't become obsessed. We can't fetishize these spectacles of debates on television as if they're having some grand impact. They play a role. I'm much more concerned about the quality of the debates on the ground with fellow citizens across various racial, class, and regional and religious lines. You can have all the debates you want at spectacle, but if your citizenry is feeling helpless and hopeless and apathetic and so forth, they're still just spectators. Well, democracy is not a spectator sport. You've got to participate. And so, I push and I promote, but I'm not in any way obsessed or preoccupied with it at all. I'm much more concerned about trying to create various contexts in mosques and churches and temples and synagogues and little leagues and, well, I guess nightclubs is difficult to have dialogue, but in the realm of the arts. I mean, the arts is one of the few places. Look at the Super Bowl. It's one of the few times you get all of these folk of different colors and regions just loving each other and hugging each other and sheer joy and unbelievable arete, excellence. And you say, we've got a moment of unity. Market-driven, spectacle, obsession with gladiating-like activity reminds you of the Roman Empire, doesn't it? My God, can't we translate genuine democratic and Socratic energy among the demos of fellow citizens rather than just the spectacle that's already circumscribed by framework? That, for me, is much, much more important.
Here we go. Okay. Thank you. Mr. Mapstead.
The system is definitely rigged in this case. The League of Women Voters used to run the debates, and guess what? We got too close to getting in the debates, so they changed the rules on us. They do that a lot. Every time you get in New York City and you start getting close to being governor, they change the rules and change the ballot access laws right from out from underneath you, right?
Yep.
And you know, the system is so rigged now that I don't think Joe Biden and Donald Trump are even going to debate each other this time. I'm not sure they can debate each other. You know, and I'm very pleased that I was able to meet and get into free and equals debate coming up here next week, and it's going to be on Rumble. And I'm one of the 6 candidates was able to achieve that. My team worked very hard. We got something like 21,000 votes or something like that to allow us to participate in this. And I think that what we have to do is we have to embrace this type of activity, this type of debate. We have to make this the new national stage. We have to make this the thing that people want to watch. And this is how that we can bring liberty, the message of liberty, to more people. Right? And I'm hoping that in a couple days, I'll get to be with Dr. West again in New York City on the free and equal debate stage, because I look forward to continuing this conversation.
Thank you.
I think I already had events that I wish I could be there, but I had events months ago to do that. But I thank God that people are trying to do that kind of thing.
So I want to do our closing 90-second statements, if we could. Closing statements, if we could start with Dr. West again, if you don't mind. Please,
Yes, but,
closing statement.
I just want to say this has been a sheer delight. And I want to thank you all for being so very kind to me and all the others. We need this kind of thing. But I want to end on a blue note, a sobering note. We are a wretched species.
Okay.
Hegel said human history is a slaughterhouse. The great Edward Gibbon said it's the register of human crimes and follies. Most of human history is a history of organized greed, institutionalized hatred, and routinized indifference toward the vulnerable. Most of human history is a history of oppression, domination, degradation. What is marvelous about our species is that we have the potential and the possibility of being wonderful alongside our wretchedness. Yes. And being wonderful means moments of interruption and disruption of the dominant tendency of organized greed and hatred. What makes democracies so majestic in effort is their attempts to create these moments of interruption, given the history of kings and queens and monarchs and suzerains and dictators and oligarchs and plutocrats. How do we sustain those moments of interruption? We're in a moment now where more and more of our fellow citizens, especially our young people, are wondering whether the only thing left is self-destruction of planet, self-destruction of democracy.
10 seconds.
And the answer is a love supreme. A love supreme. Because democracy at its best is the love of truth, the love of beauty, the love of goodness, and the love of liberty.
Thank you, thank you. Mr. Hornberger, if you would, 90 seconds, please.
Yeah, you know, there's people in this party that are happy with the 1%. And we already know the results from these polls. If things haven't changed over the last 3 years among voters, they're not going to change over the next 8 months. Unless we change directions, and that's what I'm calling for. A restoration of the founding principles of this party and a change in a completely new and dramatic direction, giving the American voters something they're not expecting this time around. We target in our elections people like here at this convention, okay, white, middle class, upper middle class people. This is a radical philosophy. They're not going to vote for this message. We need to look at the downtrodden, the people that are really victimized by this. When I told you I got 7% of the statewide vote in Virginia with this message of principle, it didn't just happen. I targeted black voters because they know where we stand with respect to this racist war on drugs. I walked into the office of one of the most prominent black ministers in this country, John O. Peterson. He got elected to the African American Hall of Fame. He was a minister of the Alfred Street Baptist Church in Alexandria, Virginia. And I said, Pastor, he didn't know me. I said, Pastor Peterson, this is what I stand for. And I gave him open borders, abolish the welfare state, get people off this dependency. It's been horrific for people in the black community, dependency on government largesse. And he said, Mr. Hornberger, I'm going to endorse your candidacy. I want you to take this letter of endorsement to every black minister in this state. And I did. And that was a large part of my 106,000 votes.
Dr. Ballay, 90 seconds, please.
This country needs a third party that can offer a civilized approach to governance. We don't see it in this day and age. There's way too much vehement rhetoric that's destroying our country, our beliefs, and the overall interwoven tapestries of the various cultures that make up the United States of America. This is poisoning our youth, and we should be concerned about it. There's no reason that in 2024, our party, or at least a third party, can't make tremendous headway in this election. This party has a great message, that of freedom, fairness, individual liberties, values, personal autonomy, and non-aggression. And if we play our cards right, there's no reason that we cannot score very, very big. So I hope this fall that everyone can get together and support third parties, but particularly, obviously, the Libertarian Party, so that we can really make history. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Mapstead, 90 seconds, please.
Thank you. I'm trying to do something different for the Libertarian Party. I'm trying to bring a win for the Libertarian Party. For too long, we've been at 1 to 3% like Jacob is talking about, and if we don't do something different, we're going to end up at 1 to 3% again. What I'm trying to do is win an electoral vote on election night. This is an achievable goal. I have done many startups, and running a presidential campaign is like running a startup, and I'm looking at this electoral vote, and we only have to win $250,000 in Lower Maine or Omaha, Nebraska in order to win this electoral vote. This puts a win on the map for libertarians on election night and gets the media attention that we need. It will get $30 to $40 million worth of free media attention, and people will Google, what is a libertarian? And that's how I found that I was a libertarian. I want everyone in America after election night to Google what is a libertarian, and this is going to grow the party and drive massive donors to our party, and this is what we need in order to grow our movement and spread the message of literary. We have to do something completely different. I want you to be a delegate for me in Washington, D.C., so that I can put this plan into action. I feel like I can actually achieve this, and I want your vote. Thank you very much. Lars24.com.
Thank you. I want to say thank you for all of you for watching. I appreciate it, and thank you so much to our panelists. Thank you so much. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you. What? Oh, it was MacArthur. Okay, yes, MacArthur said that. No substitute for victory. Thank you, my friend. Thank you. Yes.